Welcome to Privately Intelligent, where we talk about what's really happening at the intersection of leadership, AI, and human potential. Today's a little different. No roundtable, no panel, just a real conversation. Leslie Ray is one of my mentors, so I'm super excited to be here with her today. She's here to talk about pipIQ, which she did co-found, and that's the platform driving this podcast and redefining what private AI can do for small and mid-sized businesses. Leslie and I will talk about the future of work, what leaders are getting wrong about AI, and how clarity, not complexity, is the real competitive edge. All right, so a little bit about Leslie Ray. She's one of the co-founders of pipIQ, a private intelligence platform. Leslie is known for leading global teams of over 150 plus people and consistently delivering excellence in performance and growth. She has earned multiple leadership awards for her ability to bring people together, create innovative solutions, and drive results. She has guided clients to stand out in a crowded market through consultative selling and authentic connections. Leslie is now focused on helping shape a closed AI system that centers on data security, intelligence, and trust. pipIQ.
Thank you, Hannah. So nice to be here with you today.
Let's get into a little bit of your background in the why behind Leslie and pipIQ. So for someone hearing about pipIQ for the first time, how would you describe it? Break it down to me for like the sixth grade level.
Okay, that's what the level I need as well when it comes to technology. So we're in good company here. pipIQ, first of all, it stands for Private Intelligence Platform, hence the name PIP. A lot of people wonder, like, why did you call it PIP? That's why. And at the very basic heart of it, PIP is like a super smart assistant that everyone in your company has access to that knows how you operate. So it learns your business, your rules, your tone, your procedures, and it gives your employees immediate productivity lists to be able to make smarter, faster decisions. It's on call all the time, and it's yours. It keeps your data safe.
A lot of people know OpenAI tools like ChatGPT, but pipIQ is private by design.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean for a business?
Yeah, so when you're using what some people call open tools, or we would say unsecured tools, your company's data or any information you put into it is training those models. And that's like the great thing about AI, right? Like it gets smarter and smarter by all the queries we put in there every day and everything that we share. And it's creating this ginormous database of information that we can all access. We don't know the exposure level and what's going to happen with the data that we're putting out there. And there have already been leaks that are shown. So what a private secure AI like pipIQ does is it locks your data down so that you're not training those external models. I think the analogy that really spoke to me was, let's imagine we all live in an apartment building. So we all have our little separate residences, but we share the same wiring and we share the same plumbing. And maybe there's like a big bulletin board in the lobby that we can post all kinds of stuff about what's going on in the building, or I can post a note to you, Hannah, like what time do you want to meet up today? And everybody can see that. That's like open, unsecure AI. With pipIQ and private solutions, we are giving you your own tiny house. So you've got your own wiring, your own instance of PIP that's got its own plumbing, and you're not sharing that information with all the other tiny houses that are out there. And security is becoming the biggest AI topic right now. Like you can't turn on the business news or read business articles out there and they're not talking about AI risk, because the reality is 47%, so almost half of employees have admitted to uploading private, sensitive company data. And those are the ones that are admitting it. So let's say it's probably a good deal higher than that in terms of what they're sharing, and that is risky. And your employees are using it. You know, we talk to companies every day and they're like, oh, we don't use AI. Most of your employees are already using it, what we call shadow AI. So they're going on their phone or they're doing it out of sight and they're not telling you because they've discovered that it makes you faster and better at what you do.
So Pip's just helping that. Like we want you to use the AI, but just use the private AI.
Yeah, use it in a safe way, because just like, I mean, many years ago, people put so much stuff out on social media, not realizing like that can come back to haunt you today because it leaves a trail. And that's when employers are looking and they're seeing, pictures from your wild spring break or whatever it is. And it just kind of raises questions. So we don't know what's going to happen with this information. And the time to lock it down is now.
Who was pipIQ built for? What industries will get the most out of this?
Any industry that has people and processes and data that they need to protect. So, can it really apply to any company? I believe so. We designed pipIQ for the small to mid-sized business market because that's where our heart is. And we saw a gap there in terms of the tools that our customers had access to. So, you've got the big players that are rolling out all of these productivity AI tools, and they're going after the big companies that have deep pockets, that have a lot of money to spend, and they also have a lot more resources. So they've got tech resources, they've got people that can implement and support it and tweak it. And when you're a small business owner, you don't have access to those resources. So a lot of times you miss out on those tools, or just financially, you can't afford them. And that's the gap. And we believe that every company should have access to the same tools when it comes to AI. And it's a game changer. This levels the playing field for everybody. And the advantage that small companies have is you can adopt it so much sooner. So you can be more productive versus a big company who's like, oh, I've got to go through 5 committees and we need to talk to all these people. And then we have to do the change management. If I'm a smaller business, I can turn that on, and in 15 minutes, we're all using pip.
Let's bring it to a case study. Give me an example, Leslie. Give me an example of an industry, what they could use this for, like a specific team, and how pipIQ could help them.
Yeah, so let me give you a specific, and then I'll kind of go a little more general because it really can work for anybody, and kind of the best place to get started could be for a CPA firm. So they've got all this financial data and client information, perhaps, that they don't need leaking out, yet they need to do analysis on that data in a smart way that they can share with their entire team. So I can pull reports into pipIQ, and instead of somebody staring at a spreadsheet, which my husband does on the regular for hours to figure out what are the variants, what should I be reporting on, where do we need to pull it down, I can ask Pip to look at the data, ask it a few simple questions, and boom, like that, I've got my answers. So I've just taken all of that administrative drag that happens across the organization, and I've shrunk it down in a safe, secure way. Taking like a zoom out a little bit to really talk about how pipIQ can help all the companies that we work with, is what we usually recommend is start with centralizing your knowledge. So take all of those files and templates and everything you've got stored all over the place and put them into one repository that's safe, that everyone can access. So instead of me having to go through 5 people to get an answer because one refers me to another, or I'm sending 10 emails back and forth with HR trying to get a question answered, or you're like, oh, I know I saw that file somewhere. Where was it? I just type my inquiry into Pip, and by storing those in kind of like the central brain for your company, we have immediate access. And that's where companies see productivity lifts up to 40% right away.
Leslie, you've worked your way up the corporate ladder. You've been a leadership coach to other businesses. What brought you to pipIQ and why now?
I think in all the coaching that we've done over the years, and Hannah, you've been a part of that, you can probably, yay or nay after I say this, that we start to see patterns. And the biggest pattern that we've seen in the last few years is really overwhelm and burnout, and really or as a result of what we call decision fatigue. So leaders just having to constantly all day make so many decisions, and it starts to feel overwhelming, and the brain, like the cognitive load on the brain, just you start to shut down. So people will either freeze, or they start focusing on everything is urgent, everything is a fire I have to put out, and it's just so overwhelming. So that intersection with AI came as Whitney and I were just using new tools and models to help our leaders navigate their way through this and find more clarity, because that's really the key. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that theme as we go throughout this conversation. But it's really reducing the noise so that you can focus on the things that matter most, that are going to move the needle for your team. And what we found was AI can help leaders do that. You can go in, like I said, and ask questions, and hey, I need to have a difficult conversation. Give me some ideas. What does that look like? Help me prioritize my work. These are all things that pipIQ can do. And so it helps leaders settle in and kind of know like they've got that coach almost on their shoulder 24/7 to help me navigate through those times and figure out, where do I start?
So it can help people of all levels. It doesn't matter where you really are within the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the great things about AI, is that what can it do? In my opinion, it could do almost anything for anyone. That's a hard product to sell. I need to be able to show you what it does for you. And I think to your earlier question about, give an example about how a particular type of business can use it. The great thing with pipIQ is that you're training it on your own data and your own company and your policies. So regardless of what industry you're in, this is going to be a tool that's customized for you.
Let's talk about one of my favorite topics to discuss with you, Leslie, is leadership. you've worked with leaders at every level, and you just alluded to this and how you guys started PIP, but from big corporations to startup, what's the biggest leadership gap you're seeing right now?
In the past, we probably looked at skills. So we'd be like, oh, we need to focus on this skill. As I said a couple minutes ago, it's clarity right now. It is the overwhelm. It's getting people out of that drain of just these day-to-day decisions and helping them see things more clearly. And that's what pip IQ is designed to do, is like cut through that noise and give them clarity. Clarity is going to be the new leadership superpower. And when we went through some training on decision fatigue and like how do I start to categorize things, because otherwise everything's a fire and everything is urgent, and that's just building up your stress day after day. If you're making 100 decisions a day as a leader, on top of tens of thousands, I think we make as humans just like 60 to 70,000 micro decisions a day. The brain doesn't have the space to do what humans do best, like create and innovate and empathize and build relationships. And what pip IQ does is it strips all that noise away so that I can focus on what I do best as a leader.
Is there a broken mindset about AI that you wish every business leader would drop?
There are a few, but I would say from my perspective is let's not reinforce the message that AI is here to replace people. AI is here to create clarity and reduce complexity. Because the more leaders talk about that, you're just driving fear in the foundation of your organization to say, people start to think like, well, this is coming in to replace my job. What I really need to frame that as, this is coming in so you can do your job better. Guess what? I bought you this tool and I'm giving everyone in this business a promotion that comes with a full-time assistant who's smart and fast and is ready anytime you need them. And so I want people to get away from that. Do you find some efficiencies as a company? Sure. Are companies out there, on the news, as companies are posting new jobs, they're really looking at it to say, can AI do this job? And I think of that really as more of a positive for the workforce, because what that means is I'm not going to get into a job where I want to be creative and innovative and be a strong leader, and I'm going to be bogged down by time tracking and all those things. I could get on my soapbox that drove me crazy as a leader, like all that administrative drag, reducing that and letting your people do what you hired them for and what their brain is built for. That's the gain.
So really, it is like hiring a full-time assistant for every single one of your
Yes.
employees for a fraction of the cost, I might add.
Pennies per hour if you do the math.
You've said the biggest competitor isn't other companies, it's confusion. How does clarity become a leadership skill?
Yeah, and I think that's what we talked about, because when I can clear that noise away and become really clear and focused on the biggest, I'm going to go against my own advice, priorities, because priority is a singular word and we as a society has made it plural. So a priority should be like one thing, but we use it as like a set of things that are really important, but these are the needle movers. So the more clarity I can get on that as a leader, the better expectations I set for my team. And people like that clarity, they respond to it and they start to take action and make decisions on their own so much more quickly. And when they need answers about all that noise stuff, they go to pip IQ. They don't have to come to you and take your time or HR or anybody else's. The answers are there.
It's really freeing you up to do what humans do best, which is innovate and think creatively and have that thing that computers just can't capture right now.
Spot on. The robots cannot win there.
No. All right, let's talk about the product. So, pipIQ is private AI in action. You said pipIQ didn't invent AI, it invented a smarter, safer way to use it. What does that really mean, Leslie?
Yeah, so when we designed PIP, it's really based on three pillars. So it's privacy and trust, productivity that drive instant wins, and adoption through simplicity. So it is meant to be, yeah, we certainly didn't invent AI. It's been out there for many, many years, and now it's coming to a bubble, so everybody knows about it. What we recognize, though, is there's a safer, smarter way to use it versus just kind of an open blank tool. So, for example, when you use, let me step back. What we built it on is what we call the canvas theory. I think this would be an interesting thing for people to hear. And that is, some people are really good with a blank canvas. So Whitney, my business partner, is great with that. You put a blank canvas in front of her, she's dipping into the paints already and painting the picture. We've built pipIQ for those people so that if I'm already an AI user, I'm going to go in and feel really comfortable with this. I'm going to know how to get started and I can dive right in. But then you've got another segment of people who are like me, where blank canvas, I'm going to stare at it for probably too long, trying to figure out where to start. Just give me a dot. If I go to one of those paint parties, so you're like drinking wine and they show you what you're painting, like, oh, I know how to do this, and I can dive right in. pipIQ was built for that person. So we have built in 3 areas to focus on because what we found in our research are these are the 3 places that people not only spend the most time in, but they waste the most time in. And that's communication. I got to create a report. I need to write this email. I need to put a deck together for a presentation next week. Help me get started. Knowledge, just searching and looking for information, and then productivity, like help me focus on my work. How do I prioritize? Where do I get started? And then I've got people that need paint by number. So they need a lot more specific, like, what do I do here? I don't even know what to ask. And these are going to be your people that are a little hesitant to go into AI. And we've built pipIQ for them because as you explore the tool, it gives you smart prompts to show you exactly the kind of things you can do. And all you need is do a couple of those and you're hooked. Because you're like, oh my God, I wonder if it could do this. At home, I use AI all the time. Don't ask me about my cleaning binder that I built to do all my chores year round. But it's just like, what else can this thing do? And that's why it's easily adoptable because of those simple, easy wins. So with the Canvas theory, we meet people where they are, and that feels good to them, and they use it fast and quick and constantly.
You mentioned the 3 pillars of pipIQ: privacy and trust, productivity and instant wins, adoption and simplicity. Can you break those down for me? Start with privacy and trust.
Well, that, like we touched on, is really first and foremost. So this has to be a tool that is keeping your data safe and protected, your company level data, so that you're not at risk as your employees are using AI. And don't think they're not using it because they are. And they're hiding it. And they shouldn't have to hide it. Like we should embrace the tools that can help us be more productive. And that privacy is building trust with your employees because you're trusting them to use this specific tool to keep everything safe, but also your reputation and the work you do with your customers. And I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but it's really showing up in contracts. So if you're a company that still does business by a handshake, good for you. The rest of us, even small businesses, have to use contracts and agreements. And at the beginning of the year, I think it was 10% of companies were starting to put language into contracts saying specifically, if you use unsecured AI, open source AI in your work with us, this contract is null and void. And attorneys are recommending this language. Now it's almost 70%. So in just a matter of months, there has been this huge change in what we've seen. And so that security and that trust is going to be critical, regardless of the type of business you're in.
Okay, another fun topic that you've brought into my life, and now you're going to bring into everyone's life, tuning into Privately Intelligent, the brain science, otherwise known as the BS. So you often talk about the BS behind how people work. What do leaders need to know about how the brain handles change?
Thanks for the shout out on BS because Whitney and I call ourselves the queens of BS. And we love to say, like, everything we do is built on BS, and pipIQ is no exception. And I think we'll dive into this probably a little bit deeper. But we worked really close with our amazing development team to make sure that everything in PIP was based on brain science. So when it comes to change, so when you're introducing AI or any new tool or policy, whatever happens in a business, the brain senses that as danger and as a risk. And that goes back to it's how we're wired as humans. So back in the caveman days, we had to be able to react and respond very quickly to sensing danger in our environment. And that's still hardwired with us. So when we hear something new is coming, the brain is like, beep, beep, the antenna go up. This is change. This seems dangerous. And I'm going to go into a lot of times fight or flight mode. And so being able to calm that down and show people that this is a tool that's going to work for you. When people can start to see why something matters and how it's going to help them, the change curve is shortened significantly. So if you were to say, like, how does brain science influence PIP or what's built? Everything in PIP is based on brain science. So I already talked about the canvas theory, right? So using it to meet people where they are. And the fact that it's learning your company. So when somebody first goes into pipIQ, they're going to feel like, oh, this is familiar. I'm comfortable with this. So it starts to settle that brain down, especially for the people who have been resistant. so that they can start to think logically. Because when you're in that fight or flight, you're not thinking logically. You're not like, oh, this sounds like a great thing that my company has invested in that's going to really make a difference. That's why so many change initiatives fail. And I've seen it over many, many years of experience. And why others succeed is that I'm already focused on how I can get the brain to settle into where you can really think about this and see the benefits. And in addition to the canvas theory, you can customize it. So something that typically only big businesses get to do is put all this money in so I can white label it. All of our customers can white label pipIQ. You put your brand colors, you put your logo, it feels like you. You're going to put in your company guidelines and your company communication standards. So everybody's like, oh, this is how we talk. One of the things I love is you can customize the voice. So each individual user can go into pipIQ and say, this is how I want my pip to interact with me. I want it to be witty, optimistic, inquisitive. And somebody else, you might say, well, I like just the facts, just give me the details and get to the bottom line. So we could literally put in the same question to pipIQ, and we're going to get the same standard company approved answer delivered in a different way that feels like this is how I like to be talked to. So people immediately go in and they're like, oh, this gets me. Like this tool knows me. And that's not happening in other tools that are out there. You know, it's like round peg, square hole kind of situation. And it's just, you know, the amount of features that we have, the way that the screens are laid out, the way that the buttons interact, all of that is based on the brain science so that it's in a relaxed state when you're using it and you get hooked right away and you're using the tool immediately.
What's one neuroscience truth that could change how companies adopt AI?
I think it really relates to what we just talked about is the brain trusts what it recognizes. And the first step in adoption is I have to trust this before I'm going to give you any part of me actually using it and adopting it and perhaps promoting it to others. You know, and some people do that really quickly. You've got your early adopters who are going to jump in and be like, this is amazing. And those are the people I want to get on board right away to start evangelizing it throughout the organization. And then there are the others who are, you know, on the other side of that canvas theory, where they're like, well, I got to go in and see. And then I've kind of got my, this isn't going to work. And how do I get them all on board? And so it's really building that familiarity within the tool, which is how we've designed it. And it, you know, you can be literally up and running in 15 minutes. So people can be using it right away. This is not a long, involved implementation. It's simple. You don't need to be tech. You don't need tech support. We've got people that can walk you through it if that helps. You can do it on your own if you're a self-starter. We've got it all covered. And then it's leadership getting that clarity. So it's also the messaging around it because the tool is so phenomenal. Let's make sure the messaging rises to that as well. Here's what it's going to help us with. Here's what our expectations are. We've even got a template for a meeting you can hold with your employees. So we've already built that for you too, if that is helpful. Like, let's get in there right away and let's see as a team how we're going to use it. And that's all going to make the adoption go so much faster.
Last question for you, Leslie. If you could give one piece of advice to leaders navigating this new AI era, what would it be?
Get on board with AI. And just to say a little more about that, you know, we've been talking about pipIQ coming for several months now and talking to so many small businesses. And many of them are saying, not really sure what we'd use it for. We're not ready yet. If you are waiting until you think you're ready for AI, you're already behind. This is coming fast and furious, and this will become the new business infrastructure, and secure AI is going to build that foundation. I think about, you know, I'm old enough to remember when the internet came out. Hannah, you were probably a baby or not born yet. But it was a time where small businesses were, you know, we're like, let's sell websites and you need online. Oh, no, we don't need to be online. We're a local small business. We have our clients. We are word of mouth. That works really well for us. If you don't have a website and a social media presence today, people are going to look and be like, this is not legit. You know, I'm searching for dog groomers now and I'm finding some that don't have websites. I'm like, I can't get the information I need to build that trust. And this is the same thing with AI. We're sitting at that same point, except this time it's bigger, it's faster, and it's more powerful. And it is coming. Get in front of it so that you control your data and you control what matters most for your company, your people, your information, and the relationships that you have with your customers that are built on being a brand they can trust. Get it going. My door is open. I am open to having conversations with anybody who wants to kick the tires on pipIQ, wants to talk about how can I make this work in my business. Bottom line, you need to get started. Start small and stay curious.
And if you guys want to take her up on that, you can find Leslie on LinkedIn at Leslie Ray. R-A-E is her last name. And you can stay up to date with Privately Intelligent and more from pipIQ, also on LinkedIn and the other social media platforms. Leslie, thank you so much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure to talk to you about PIP and about your experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Always good to speak with you.